What's going on? Movie Quotes Jones here, and I'm doing a review of Robot JOX, one of my all-time favorite movies. I guess you can call it a guilty pleasure movie, but I just love watching it. When I was watching it to make this review, I was really happy to be at work, unlike when I reviewed Whiplash. This movie stars Gary Graham as Achilles, Paul Koslo as Alexander, and Anne-Marie Johnson as Athena. Don't believe me?
My name is Athena.
Now, this movie also features Danny Kamikona as Doc Matsumoto and Michael Aldridge as the legendary Tex Conway. This is the first review in a series that I'm going to do called Movies That I Loved That Most People Didn't Love, whether it's other people in the general public or the critics or whoever. Now, Robot JOX is set after the nuclear holocaust. We've decided that we're no longer going to go to war in a traditional manner. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take like these highly trained fighters and we're going to put them in gigantic mechs and they're going to fight to the death. They're going to punch each other and shoot each other with missiles and lasers and bullets and, crotch chainsaws until one of them is dead or incapacitated. Now, the movie picks up after a fight between Alexander, who represents the Confederation, one of the two nations that had emerged after this nuclear holocaust, and Hercules, the second to last fighter left for the market. You notice the Confederation and the market have some substantial similarities to the world superpowers at the time this movie was released in 1990. Now, Hercules' defeat is described by Doc Matsumoto as
clearly a matter of espionage.
That's right, my friends. We have us a spy, a Confederation spy, somewhere in the mix. Anyways, Achilles, the hero of the market, has won his last 9 fights, and he is in position to fight Alexander in his 10th fight for the sovereign state of Alaska. The fight takes a horrifying turn. It's at one point, when missiles and projectiles are not supposed to be used, Alexander shoots off what I guess is a rocket fist, and it goes hurtling out of control towards the bleachers, because at these fights, there are bleachers, and the spectators, which very strongly resembles, I guess, a proletariat, they're allowed to go into the stands and watch and even place bets on these fights. Well, the rocket fist goes out of control, and Achilles, in an attempt to stop it from just colliding with the bleachers, jumps in the way. And his robot ends up in the bleachers instead, killing hundreds of people, something like 300 people. The aftermath of this results in a military tribunal where it is decided that the match was a draw. We'll talk more about the tribunal later, and that they would fight again in a week in Death Valley. Achilles says, no, not going to do it. You see, his robot, having crashed onto all these poor people, has left him emotionally scarred, and he doesn't want to have to get back into the robot and fight anymore. He stipulates that his contract said that he should start 10 fights and that's it. Alexander does not take kindly to this. Achilles shoots Alexander the post-apocalyptic middle finger, and Alexander responds in probably the most appropriate way possible. Now, there is a doctor. Her name is Professor Laplace, and she is developing what she calls Gen JOX. And the rest of the movie refers to them as, not to put too fine a point on it here, test tube babies.
Test tube, baby?
Or simply as tubies. They are called tubies from this point of the movie forward. And she's all excited because now one of her Gen JOX, or Tubies, is going to get to go fight Alexander for Alaska. So riddled with guilt, Achilles goes and gets shit-faced at a bar where they have 20th century style drinks that have apparently been unaffected by the nuclear radiation. After an altercation with Alexander at the bar, Achilles wakes up after having a horrifying nightmare in his apartment, and it turns out that Athena brought him home. You see, the Tubies don't drink, and that makes them the all-time best designated drivers ever. So if they serve no other purpose, you guys, they're great designated drivers. She wants to learn what makes Achilles so special, and he says fear is the trick. And she gets all upset, and she says she can't feel fear, and he says, well, then you're not human. And that leads to this little gem here, one of my favorite lines in the movie.
I am human. I was bred for a purpose. You just happened.
Yeah, that's what Daddy used to say.
So Achilles leaves the life of a robot jock and decides to try and pursue a normal life in the aftermath of post-apocalyptic, radioactive, fucked up world. And he goes to move in with his brother, who is apparently either a professional reader or a professional reading tutor. One thing leads to another back at the 2B training facility, and Athena is named Queen of the Mountain and gets to be the robot jock who fights Alexander. Achilles, who has grown attracted to Athena for reasons I will never understand, decides to go on back. He knows he will be able to, just basically talk his way back in. This, of course, infuriates Athena, who goes to his apartment, sedates him.
You shot.
With the sedative.
24 hours ago. Anybody? He wants to be sedated. And they have them a little fist fight. And Athena says,
Don't make me really hurt you, old man.
Old?
Now, obviously, Athena wins because Achilles is drugged up. She goes on and dons the robot jock suit, and it's not until she's already in the cockpit that it is discovered that she is not Achilles. It's also about this point in the movie where Tex Conway goes to visit Matsumoto, and Matsumoto outs him as the spy. She gets in the robot, takes it over, enters the field. As she is charging towards him, she's encouraged to watch the videotape briefing that Matsumoto made during the confrontation with Tex. Point during the movie that everybody finds out that Tex is the spy, and a harrowing, tense exchange takes place.
Guards, put this man under arrest.
Tex Conway?
That sly Jap son of a bitch. He had the camera on.
Tex, you didn't.
Sure as hell did. Watch.
You're right, Matsumoto.
Oh, God.
I'll see you hang for this. I'll see you in hell.
Alexander comes out with guns blazing. Also, he has 4 legs at this point for some reason. And in spite of this reveal, Achilles still encourages Athena to use the secret weapon.
Hit him with a blinder now!
But she is hesitant.
But if Tex is a spy, Alexander will know about the blinder.
He didn't have time to tell him.
Wait one goddamn second. Did he just say he didn't have time to tell him?
He didn't have time to tell him.
You didn't have time to tell him.
He proceeds to basically beat her ass to the ground. Achilles comes out and saves her. They have a battle, and at the end they decide they can both live happily ever after. The end. Okay, so with the plot covered, Let's go into a couple of lists here. The first list is one that I call Things I Did Not Understand as a Kid. Now, I was probably 9 or 10 years old the first time that I saw Robot JOX. The first thing we're going to talk about is the direct deposit. Now, there's a point in time in the movie where Professor Laplace, I mispronounced her name last time, comes and asks the Robot JOX for raw material for the gene pool. I know what you're thinking that means. Well, guess what? You're absolutely right.
I'd appreciate it if you could provide us with raw material.
Raw material?
For the gene pool. You are the market's most famous JOX.
Think.
Your DNA will be used to breed a superior stock of warrior.
Could we just skip the middleman and make a direct deposit?
The next item is the ass slap. Now, I guess it's customary in sports for teammates to like slap each other on the ass. When Achilles is getting in the robot for the first fight, the technician slaps him on the ass. I guess it's for good luck or hype or what, I don't know. I'm not a robot jock nor any other kind of jock. This is actually how this technician is able to discover that the person in the suit for the second fight is not Achilles. It's because he slaps her on the ass, as he apparently customarily always does. And she reacts by kind of gasping and giving him a look. Well, then he goes...
Hey, this ain't Achilles.
And the chaos from there ensues. I honestly have probably seen that movie as a kid hundreds of times, and I never understood how he was able to make that decision. Now I do. The pinup posters. There's a couple of scenes when Achilles is on a route to his brother's house, and also when they're showing shots of the proletariat outside of the arena, I guess it is. And it's got pictures of women who are either pregnant, like really pregnant, or pictures of women who had just had a baby and they're like kind of holding the baby in their arms. And they're presented in a way that resembles, you know, a pinup poster. You know, a pinup poster, like the posters that I think of as pinup posters would be the ones that Andy Dufresne hung over his escape hole in Shawshank Redemption. I think Raquel Welch was one, Rita Hayworth was one, Marilyn Monroe. These women who are either pregnant or just after having had a kid are kind of presented in that way. And I didn't get it at all as a kid, not one bit. I think that this is to make the act of having children to be desirable and encouraged. You know, the world was decimated by nuclear explosions, and so I guess they're trying to repopulate the earth by getting pregnant as often as I can. By getting pregnant as often as they can. This idea is explored in more detail when Achilles does go visit his brother and his sister-in-law, and he comes in and the apartment is full of kids. There's like 4 or 5 kids, and she's pregnant with another one.
Look at you.
Oh, we're just doing our part. And besides, with 6 kids, you get 3 bedrooms.
That's kind of an interesting little touch. Okay, the next list that we come to is the things that I don't currently and will probably never understand. Ajax. In the proletariat scene that we were talking about just a second ago, they are talking to a scientist or a technician or something, and his name is Ajax. You can just barely hear the news reporter call him that. And he talks about a secret weapon.
Ajax, do you think Achilles has a chance?
New secret weapon they've been saving just for this fight.
Just look at him. What is this guy's problem? He's like talking with his teeth clenched shut. His jacket and shirt look like they're like a size and a half too tight for his neck. He's sweating heavily. I just don't get it's hilarious to me. The referees. These guys are probably my main problem with this movie, and they always have been. Even when I was a kid and I didn't understand the ass slap or the pinups, I understood that these guys were awful, terrible at their jobs. These guys are the worst refs in the known universe. They are bullshit. Let's just go on through and take a look at a few of these decisions that were made and the outcomes of said decisions. So here we have Alexander winning a fight against Hercules.
The judgment is victory for the Confederation. Alexander, hold your position.
Let's move along to the fight between Achilles and Alexander, the one where Achilles' robot gets knocked into the bleachers and kills a bunch of people. At a certain point, the referee floater, which is the most pussified name that I've ever heard for a vehicle in my entire life, comes by, floats by, and the announcer says,
"Here comes the referee floater. The referees have shut down the long-range weapon systems. No more missiles, cannons, or lasers. Now it's man to man."
Did that rocket fist look disabled to you? I think it's a fair statement to say that the referees are responsible for all those deaths. Then we fast forward to the military tribunal. This is one that I was discussing earlier, involving the post-apocalyptic middle finger. The referees declare,
for the benefit of the media and the public, let me first make two things clear. One, although it is tragic that many people lost their lives in this incident, that tragedy is irrelevant. Two, the motivation of Achilles in choosing to block the weapon is also irrelevant. We hereby declare the match inconclusive. A draw. A draw.
a draw. How is it a draw? Look, they didn't shut the long-range weapons down, meaning the whole thing was their fucking fault. Or Alexander, like Billy Mitchell as of recent, did something he wasn't supposed to do, which would have immediately invalidated him. I don't get why this is even happening at all. This should be open and shut. Finally, with these refs, when Athena steals the robot and climbs out of the vehicle assembly building, for lack of a better term, the commissioner reaches out to the referees.
Stop the match. We have a problem. Achilles is not in command of the robot. Our fighter is not in there.
And the referee's response is this.
Identity of the fighters is not our responsibility. End of transmission.
What in the fuck? That just strikes me as ridiculous. It's not your concern. Like, let's say that there was a boxing match or something like that, and instead of Mike Tyson climbing into the ring to fight, just some Joe Schmo off of the street does. Do you think the referees would say,
identity of the fighters is not our responsibility?
Yeah, I bet not! Okay, the referees were bad. Terrible. But that points to yet a bigger problem. Everybody in this movie is bad at what they do. Alexander is not a good robot jock. Seems like he is because he kicks a lot of ass, but he's getting all of the information handed to him before the fight, so he doesn't need to actually use any strategy. Also, check out Alexander's sharpshooting ability. He could not hit a large, slowly moving object that is only obstructed by full sunlight. Achilles is a bad robot jock. He doesn't win a single fight in this entire movie. Not one. You realize that? The Tubies are bad at their jobs. They are irrational. The one male Tubi, the only other one that's really featured other than Athena, I think his name is Sargon. Sargon is a cocky little shit. No Tubi has won any confrontation against anything but themselves. Take this part right here, where Sargon kicks Achilles in the back after the training is supposed to be over. What does Achilles do? Flattens him. Then there's this part where they're in the bar, and Sargon straight up tries Alexander, and Alexander proceeds to flatten him. Something else I don't understand is this move that Achilles does in the movie. Twice. Only Athena has won any confrontation as a Tubi, and she didn't even really win a confrontation. She just was able to climb, like, the obstacle course faster than anybody else could. Sargon would have made it if he didn't get booby-trapped to death. She did technically win the fight against Achilles in his apartment, but she cheated, man. She drugged him up. She sedated him. 24 hours ago. Since the Tubies suck, we have to also talk about how bad Professor Laplace sucks, because she made these things. So she's a bad scientist. Everybody in this movie sucks at what they're supposed to be the best at. Tech says at one point,
He let anybody do anything. You say he's not the best?
how are we supposed to take his word for it? Okay, finally, the last thing that I don't understand and I think holds the movie back is the ending. Oh, fuck, the ending. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the last fight up to the last frame of the movie. I'm talking about after the point at which Achilles says,
I'm gonna get in this thing, and I'm gonna kick your ass!
Gets in the robot, suits up, turns everything on, and then Alexander immediately tries to stomp him. Achilles shoves him out of the way, stands up. Alexander brings his fist in the air like he's fixing to just do damage to Achilles, and he responds in probably the most reasonable way that anybody would in this situation. What you're seeing is actually in the movie. He takes off and flies into outer space. He gets there pretty quick. So I've heard that this movie is supposed to be like a retelling of the Iliad, except for with robots. This scene right here is the only thing, in my opinion, that resembles the Iliad. Achilles literally gets shot in the foot. Then he crash lands back to Earth with a cockpit temperature of 400 degrees. That's right, 400 degrees in the little room he's sitting in. I don't think he would have been able to breathe, and I don't think he would have lived. He lands in the desert, and guess where he lands? Just take one guess. I won't tell you, just guess. Alright, if you guessed the exact spot from which they took off, then you were correct. This enables Achilles to, transform into the little robot tank thing, which is pretty cool. I feel like the tank resembles the Marketeer robot that Matsumoto was describing during his confrontation with Tex. And he's able to get all the way under Alexander's robot's legs and get a shot at him. Alexander being the crack shot that he is, it only makes sense that he shoots himself in the leg and hollers, which I'm pretty sure in this context means Achilles' robot is immobilized by Alexander simply reaching down with the one hand that he has left and flipping him onto his side. That's when we get the crotch chainsaw from earlier. You thought I was kidding? Well, nope, here it is. And Achilles escapes, hot wires the robot fist, shoots it at Alexander. This time, Alexander's robot bursts into flames and explodes. Then Alexander jumps out and they have a fist fight.
Here and now.
After this riveting and highly choreographed fist fight, I guess Achilles gets tired and he decides that they can both live.
You can live. We can both live. We can live.
And I swear before Christ, this is how the movie actually ends. God damn it! Well, I know I've spent about the last 10 or 15 minutes or so shitting on this movie and talking about things that just flat out don't make sense. But I reassert what I said at the beginning of this video, which is how much I love it and how much I enjoyed working on it. I've had to make this video a two-parter, so come back for Robot JOX Part 2, and I'll go through all of the reasons why I would happily pop this movie in during dinner, or while I'm working, or something like that. In the meantime, if you're not my friend on Facebook, find me, Movie Quotes Jones. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time in Part 2. Dun digga dun digga dun 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 digga dun 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 digga dun digga dun.